Hi dear students, today let's come to with a new topic of food microbiology, the fermentation of vegetables. Fermentation is a term which is quite common to every one of us right now because we have lots of goods like fermented food grains, we use fermented food grains, we use fermented drinks, fermented of vegetables, fermented fruits, like that. Different forms of fermented products are quite daily used within our life. Now, the term fermentation is coming from a Latin word fervere, which means boil. And from various centuries, this technique has been used to preserve food. Now, if you go to look at the 3rd century BC, the Chinese have described preservation of vegetables by fermentation. And it's a technique whereby the starches in the vegetables are mainly converted into lactic acid by the lactic acid producing bacteria. And vegetables, especially the fermented ones, are produced by relatively low technology energy processes with a low energy inputs, and they produce foods that have unique flavors and textures and are also adding variety to the diet. Now, what is the reason that we have to use here a lactic acid bacteria to preserve the food? Basically, we all know that the acidic conditions are those conditions which will prevent the growth of microbes, especially the spoilage causing microbes. So, if you naturally ferment food using a lactic acid producing bacteria, it will produce large amounts of lactic acid in the food, and that will help in the preservation of that particular food from spoilage causing microbes. Now, what are the different types of fermented foods that we have? If you look at this picture, you can see there are different vegetables here which are being put fermented. It's almost carrots, various varieties, almost everything that we have, almost all the vegetables can be fermented and used. And the main purpose of fermenting is because some of the vegetables would be seasonal, and it would be available only in one particular season. So to use them throughout the year, we would preserve them, we would want to preserve them, and fermentation is a technique which can be used to preserve them. And I would like to talk about some fermented foods which are of much popular. Now, in North India, you have a fermented drink called the kanji. Okay, and this fermented drink is made using the basic ingredients like using black carrots, okay, which is found during the winter months in northern India, mustard powder, red chili powder, black salt, and water. And this mustard is responsible for the fermentation process here. You can add certain in some what happens, it is believed to keep it will after the fermentation process, and when you drink this, it keeps the body warm in the chilly winters of North India. And the purpose of drinking this during the festival of Holi is mainly to keep your body warm and safe from infection after you have played with cold water. So North Indian kanji is a fermented vegetable food, which is fermented vegetable drink, okay, which is of used quite popularly. Coming to the next one, which is of much importance, is a bamboo shoot. Bamboo shoots in North India, especially in the Himalayan regions, of course, it is quite popular. In Northeast India type regions, in the Northeast Indian states, you can find that these bamboo shoots are consumed either fresh during their harvesting time or in fermented form throughout the season. And it has been thought that it is mostly found in though it is found in northeastern states, it's also been confined to some other Asian countries, and there are different names that by which it has been known. Soybum, soydin, sojin, but like that, different names have been given for this food. And it is usually, this preparation is a tradition in the region, and it is mainly found as a integral part of the daily diets of majority population. And on fermentation, it produces various essential proteins, minerals, vitamins, carbohydrates, and other nutrients. So the supplementation of or the inclusion of fermented bamboo shoots within their diet would help them overcome all the difficulties or all the insufficiencies which were there during when it has been excluded. So to provide all these nutrients, they have included bamboo bamboo shoot. Now bamboo is harvested at a particular time, and throughout the seasons you need to get these vitamins. So to preserve the bamboo shoots, what happens, they ferment the bamboo shoot and use it. Now these are the other vegetables which are being found to be fermented. It's all of them are familiar to you. Then if you go to look at the fermented vegetables of India, there are quite many of them. You have bamboo shoots, as we mentioned earlier. You have leaves of mustard, radish and cauliflower, radish root, then cabbage, as it's quite popular in other countries also. They are called the sauerkraut. And then you have cucumber, mustard seeds, carrot, beetroot, then sword bean, lima bean, and many of the leaves are also being fermented. And if you want to know more details, you can just refer this journal. You can come across the various fermented vegetables of India. Now coming to another one, sauerkraut, which is quite popular everywhere. Here sauerkraut is a fermented cabbage, and here to obtain the full fermentation, what happens, the shredded cabbage in the presence of not less than 2% or more than 3% of salt, what happens with that, you mix the lactic acid bacteria, and the end product of the normal kraut fermentation is lactic acid along with a small amount of acetic acid and propionic acid, a mixture of gases, of which carbon dioxide is a principal gas, and some amount of alcohol and a mixture of aromatic esters. And the main purpose of this, once the acidity is being formed, here as we had mentioned earlier, it helps to control the spoilage and the putrefative organisms, and also contributes to the extended shelf life of the product. And you can do lactic acid fermentation of vegetables basically in 4 different ways. Either you can use a dry salted method or in a brine salted method, a non-salted method, or in a pit fermentation method. In dry salting, the vegetable, as the term implies itself, the vegetable is treated with a dry salt, and then the salt extracts of the juice from the vegetables creates a brine, and that is being used further for fermentation. After dry salting, you can use it for fermentation, or you can take a brine salt. A brine is used to vegetables which coherently contain less moisture. A brine solution is that means you will have 15 to 20% of salt solution here, and those vegetables which contain less moisture are being put in this 15 to 20% salt solutions, such as pickled cucumbers, kimchi, olives, etc. are being used. Then you have the non-salted varieties where the vegetables are fermented directly by using lactic acid bacteria without prior addition of salt or brine. Then you have the pit fermentation. Here what happens is an ancient method of preserving vegetables without the addition of salts. The raw materials undergo an acid fermentation within a pit to produce a paste with good keeping qualities. So before the fermentation, you need to process the vegetables, and they can be done in all 3 these methods, and further on lactic acid fermentation will be carried out. Now in the case of sauerkraut, here the process of preparing sauerkraut, as we have told here, you take the fresh cabbage heads are being cleaned, the outer leaves and the central core is being removed, the cabbage is shredded and salted, and the fermentation process is being done. And if you want, you can add some starter cultures. Okay, starter cultures can be added here, and addition of other vegetables or spices, that's up to you. It depends upon your variety and your taste. Then sauerkraut is being packaged, it is pasteurized, and it can be stored. Here the first microorganisms to start acting are the gas producing cocci, such as Lactobacillus mesenteroides, and they produce the acids. And when the acid is about 0.2 to 0.3%, what happens, this growth slow down and they die off, allowing their enzymes to continue their function. And what happens, the activity initiated by this Lactobacillus mesenteroides is continued by lactobacilli until the acidity level of 1.5 to 2% is attained. And the high salt concentration and the low temperature inhibit this bacteria to some extent. Finally, Lactobacillus pentoaceticus continue the fermentation, bringing the acidity to 2 to 2.5%, thus completing the fermentation. So you can find that at one bacteria is been doing the first function, then after that another microbe is coming to act. Now comes to kimchi. This is a Korean kimchi, brine salted fermented vegetable, and about 5 to 500 gram of kimchi is being consumed by people in Korea. Now coming to the method, you have Korean cabbage, which is salted to 15% brine for 5 to 10 hours, washed twice with fresh water, drained, and then stuffing between the cabbage leaves can be done. It is put in an earthen jar, pressed with a stone weight on top and cover, and the fermentation for 1 to 2 months in winter, and further consumed for 3 to 4 months until the next spring. Here also we have the lactic acid bacteria such as the Lactobacillus mesenteroides, Streptococcus faecalis, Lactobacillus plantarum, as well as Saccharomyces cerevisiae are being found. So either you can add these bacteria, or else what happens, these bacteria which would be present in the cabbage itself could sometimes ferment it. Now basically talking about the fermentation of vegetables, the steps at a whole, you have the fruits and the vegetables. They are being selected, cleaned, washed and disinfected. You can either do a step of blanching, peeling and shredding, and after that if it's a salted version you go to the salted, or if it's non-salted you go in one direction, or if it's mixed you have both together. So soaking in the brine solution, it is fermented and dried and pressing, then it is sun dried or pasteurized and packaged and stored. The non-salted one is sun dried, filled in a vessel and fermented, and same way pasteurization has been done. Now here it has been mixed with 3 to 5% of salt along with other ingredients. The soaking in brine solution has been carried out, fermentation for 1 to 2 weeks at 10 to 25 degrees centigrade, drying or pressing, and then finally pasteurization, packing and storage of this is being done. Now what is the purpose of all this? You get an improved quality by fermenting the vegetables, and the enrichment of the food substrates biologically with vitamins and other nutrients mainly happen because various other vitamins which are not being produced by the vegetables also will be released by certain microbes which ferment these vegetables. And the enrichment of the human diet through the development of a wide diversity of flavors, aromas and textures in the food could be possible by using the fermented vegetables. It would increase the digestibility of vegetables. Now various vegetables have cellulose contents which are not quite easy for us to digest, but by the action of microbes, the cellulosic content of it would be degraded, and various non-nutrient factors, okay, which were trapped in it will be converted into a nutrient factor with the help of these microbes. That is, these microbes will use these non-nutrient factors and in turn give us various other nutrient factors. And at the same time it helps in the preservation of substantial amounts of vegetables and the preservation of as well as detoxification. Now various ingredients which would some of the vegetables in the raw form they might contain some toxic ingredients, and the detoxification of these natural toxins is possible by the process of detoxification, and it will help to reduce the anti-nutritional properties as we mentioned earlier, and a decrease in the cooking time and fuel requirements also will be found to be less when we are using fermented vegetables rather than the raw vegetables. And moreover, there was a prominent use of fermented vegetables in the Indian tradition is mainly because of most of these fermented vegetables have a high medicinal benefits by increasing your immunity by as well as substituting various other added ingredients and added vitamins into your body. The fermented vegetables play an important role in the Indian diet, and I hope you are clear with all these. With this we come to an end of the session. Thank you.